They actually tried to stop my surgery mid-surgery. Well, hello everybody and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Sophie and I know it has been a hot minute since I have been on here, but there's all good reasons and we will get into that. But before we start, be sure to click that thumbs up button and the subscribe button if you want to see more. So I did actually post a video from Worlds earlier this year, which I did film, I just didn't get around to uploading. So last season for cheer, I kind of packed way too much into my schedule and I had literally no downtime. And when I say no downtime, I mean no downtime. Like, I would get half an hour here and there and I would for reals just crash because my body was just saying no, basically. I just didn't have time to edit, I didn't have the energy to edit, and it in turn knocked my mental health as well. And then season ended. I will update you all maybe in a different video what my cheer life this season looks like. But new cheer season, I also cut down at work because again it was getting a bit too much for my body. And so yeah, I then was gonna get back on track, get back into YouTube, but no, my pacemaker decided to die, so that didn't happen, and I just got really unwell, and I am at the end of my recovery now for my surgery. Surgery went really well. It all went smooth. I was actually ridiculously lucky that I got my surgery, but I'll let you know what I mean. Get into that all within good time. But yeah, so I think it was about 3 months after my pacemaker died, I managed to get my new one. So pacemaker, yeah, it died. I think, well, we think it was in around August kind of time that it died. And basically I was on the waiting list to see the now only guy in the UK that does the pacemaker. So the one that did my pacemaker the first time, we're not entirely sure where he's gone. We think he's maybe retired, but either way, can't see him anymore, and there's now only one guy in the UK that does it. So we were on the waiting list for about 1.5 years, which is about the norm, sadly. And finally we saw him at like the end of August, and we think the pacemaker died about 1.5 weeks to 2 weeks before we saw him. So that in itself is already incredibly lucky, because when the pacemaker dies you get about 2 months like grace period, he called it, where you have some of the effects as if the pacemaker is working before it completely dies on you. So in those 2 months you're getting worse, but it's gradually rather than like boom, pacemaker dead. Doesn't quite work like that. So we saw him, he was like, so have you had any more symptoms? I was like, well, I'm taking my anti-sickness a bit earlier, but like nothing too much, not knowing that this was because the pacemaker was dead. And he was like, yeah, it's dead. I was like, wait, what? Like, I know I was in the danger zone because it is 7 years now since my first pacemaker, but what? We're like, say what now? And he was like, yeah, it's dead. I was like, but I literally felt it about 1.5 weeks ago. It was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, the only way I can describe it is what I would imagine a baby kicking would feel like, where it kind of goes blah, 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 blah. That's my description. And he was like, yeah, that could be the pacemaker just dying. I was like, great. Fantastic. Obviously a bit emotional at this point because new cheer season and work and just life in general, and I always have this fear of going back to where I started because obviously it's not a very nice place and I have come a long way. And he was like, yeah, it's dead, so we need to put a new one in. I was like, he was like, yeah, we're gonna get a new one in, but I can do it in a matter of like weeks. So we were like, okay, that's not so bad. And you know what, if it's gonna go at any time, this is the best time. I don't want it to go before, you know, I'm just going on holiday or I'm going to a competition or anything like that. So we're grateful at the time it came. It did come at the best possible time. We eventually got the date for the operation, well, the penciled in operation and the pre-op assessment, because you have to go through pre-op assessment to make sure basically your body will be able to cope with surgery. So I had all of that. That all came back okay, and then I got my surgery date, which was actually my dad's birthday. So I had surgery on October 23rd and we went to see him at the end of August sometime. So in that period of time I basically had to just tolerate getting worse, and I ended up kind of back to where we were, where anything I was eating I was running to the toilet and I just wasn't very well, which again probably had an impact on mental health, because although I can see where I got to and all the things I've achieved, it's never nice to see and re-experience what you went through, and it kind of, in some ways it felt worse, because whereas the first time around it kind of gradually got really bad, this time it was like, bam, this is how it used to be. So it was a good reminder, but it also showed us how much the pacemaker does do. I know I have a lot of issues with pain still, but we were always told the pacemaker was primarily for nausea and for sickness. So we were like, do you know what? Yeah, because my mum at first was kind of unsure if I should get it. She didn't know how much the pacemaker was doing, because I'm still also on anti-sickness medication, but we saw what it does, and it does a lot, and it's really sad because there is a lot of problem with funding for the pacemaker. So that kind of sucks that not everyone that needs the pacemaker would be able to get it, or would have to really fight for it, because 7 years down the line there's still huge problems getting funding, maybe even more than there was before. The only reason that my funding came through quite quickly was because it had been previously funded by the NHS. So when you can prove to them with the letter that they give you that it was funded by them, then they have like an agreement with the doctors that they will then refund it, because clearly it's doing something for you, so it's not a waste of money. So I got my funding through quite quickly, but there's so many people out there that's not that lucky. I know I was very lucky with that. So I had my surgery October 23rd. They actually tried to stop my surgery mid-surgery. Like, they came into my specialist mid-surgery and were like, you need to stop this. He was like, so what now? And they were like, yeah, you have to stop. He was like, well, it's too late now, I can't stop. I'm over halfway through, I can't stop. And so luckily I didn't. I was originally third on the list and I got moved up to second that day. Thank the Lord I did. I am so grateful that I did, because actually all the surgeries after mine that day were cancelled, and all of the ones the week after were cancelled. We saw him on Monday, so we saw him a few days ago, beginning of this week that I'm filming this, so maybe like a week before I'm uploading it. But we saw him and he said he hasn't done a pacemaker since mine, because they're having problem funding beds, and in turn they see funding the pacemaker as a problem anyway. So I am exceedingly thankful, because I probably wouldn't have had it before Christmas, and it would have been even longer that I'm getting worse and worse, and obviously building back up when you're bad isn't easy. So the worse you get, the harder it is. But luckily they managed to do it. So there were two different types of surgeries that I could have been having on that day, and going into the surgery I didn't know which one I would be having. It would be dependent on what they find. The first one was the nice easy turnover that gives a 3 week, roughly 2 to 3 week recovery, where they take the pacemaker out of the skin pocket that's just under your skin that they created when they put it in initially. They just, oh excuse me, they just take that out and switch it in with a new battery pack, essentially pacemaker, whatever you want to call it, and connect it to the wires that are already there. Or if they did that and they found that there was actually a problem with the wires that I already have, they would have had to do basically the original surgery that I had, which is then a 6 to 8 week recovery, because they're then going into the stomach, through the muscle and everything, rather than just skin. Thankfully this time around my pacemaker wires were all good, so they just had the easy surgery. And because of the EDS, it turned into a 3 week recovery rather than 2 week, just because of how skin heals with EDS, which not great, FYI. If you have EDS, you'll realise that. But thankfully all surgery went okay, recovery was okay physically. I actually didn't have to take any painkillers. I didn't find it too bad. It was essentially a big cut, which just stopped you from being able to drive or do exercise, anything like that. It was more mentally hard for me. I found mental recovery a lot harder than I did the actual physical recovery. So with recovery, obviously you're in bed a lot, and I am not very good at that, which is why I probably had such a jam-packed season last season. I don't like sitting at home in bed all day. I know some days I have to, but I don't like doing it for a number of days in a row. And obviously with recovery, I had almost 3 weeks of having to lay in bed, not doing a lot, and I don't like that. Not at all. It's almost a time for me to start overthinking and get bored, even if I'm doing stuff, and it just makes me not enjoy anything. So then I kind of sit there just going, I don't want to do anything. I'm very, very thankful for I can't speak. I'm very, very grateful for my family and for my boyfriend, because they made the whole recovery way easier. They always made sure that I wasn't on my own for too long. I had people coming in and out. My boyfriend is a PT, so anytime he had a gap in a day, he'd come and see me, or my brother offered to come home in his lunch gap, things like that, so that I wasn't on my own all day every day. And yes, I had bits on my own, but that's never as bad as if you're on your own for like 9-10 hours in a day by yourself, not even able to do anything, because I couldn't go for a walk, I couldn't do exercise, I wasn't allowed to drive for the first 2 weeks. So I'm very thankful for them, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't take its toll on you mentally, because I'm not someone that likes to lay in bed. But I did manage to go between 2 places. So I had my house at home, like my family home, and then my boyfriend's apartment, which, to be fair, I've kind of overtaken and spend more time here most of the time. So I had 2 different sceneries that I could see as well, and go out where I could. So it could have been a lot worse, but it still took its toll. Mentally, I still found it hard. When I was by myself and I couldn't do much, I found it hard not having that independence and being able to drive. Even if I didn't go anywhere, knowing I can't drive is a lot. So although recovery was hard, I can't complain too much, because I know it could have been a lot harder. Yes, it did have its impact on me mentally, but not too bad that I couldn't get out of it. I had days, or I had a few days, where I would be kind of not in the best place mentally, but they were a lot easier to snap out of than what I've been like previously. But the problem with mental health is once it's there, so it can quite easily come out, I guess. But I tried to keep busy. I watched a lot of Christmas movies and put the Christmas tree up in November. It is never too early. I'm just putting it out there. We put it up at the beginning, like the first weekend or the second weekend of November, and I love it. I am actually obsessed with our Christmas tree, like obsessed. So I'm going to put a picture right here because I love it, and I feel like you need to enjoy the pacemaker Christmas tree thing, because I don't know if we would put it up that early if I wasn't in recovery. Basically, I was taking Christmas shopping at the Range. FYI, not sponsored. I freaking love the Range. The Range, to be fair, most of my boyfriend's apartment is the Range. Oops. Literally, like, all the cushions you see pretty much behind, all the decorations, everything is basically the Range. So, the Range, if you do want to sponsor me, I would not be saying no. That's how much I love it. So basically, he took me to the Range because it is not far from where he lives. And we went and did a massive Christmas shopping trip. We got stockings, which I've never done and I'm really excited to do. We got the whole Christmas tree, we got the lights, we got some decorations, we got some t-shirts for Christmas Day. And then we got back and I was like, but if we put it away now, we're just going to have to get it out in like a couple of weeks. So we may as well just put the tree up while everything is out. And I somehow managed to convince him, so we put the tree up that same day. And I love it. But anyway, back to life and update and surgery, because I know quite a few people have actually been asking for surgery update. I will kind of put pictures of when we were able to see surgery updates, because obviously they put a cover on when I was asleep and I couldn't change it for about a week. Like, he's upped it by 70% on how strong it is, I guess you could say. I don't know where my description levels are at right now, but they're not high. Anyway. And he's upped it 70% because obviously they have to put it on quite a low setting when they first put it in so it doesn't shock you. And then he's upped it now. So hopefully in like a few days, a week, it will start kicking in with the higher setting, because obviously it takes a bit of time for it to get there. And I think it will, because yesterday especially, so that was, what day was yesterday? Yesterday was Thursday, so that's 3 days after it was upped. And I could, again, I had that feeling of like, I could feel it, but I could feel it quite a lot. And my sickness levels are definitely better. I'm taking my medication later in the evening rather than having to have such a short gap between the first lot and the second lot. And so I'm hoping it's looking like we'll get that back to stability, and then we just have the whole pain thing to figure out. So if you haven't been following me for a while or ever, I suffer the most when it comes to pain. I get a pain right under my left rib throughout a day, but primarily obviously when I eat, because gastroparesis and all. And that's the hardest thing we have to deal with. Nothing really works. We don't want me to get stuck on opioids. My pain specialist is very, very strong-minded about that. And for a couple of years now, we've been doing ketamine injections on and off with some gaps here and there. And they help the most. They don't stop the pain. I still get a lot of pain if I eat a proper meal, but it allows me to graze and have bits here and there, which without that, I don't know where I'd be. But the problem is it does have an effect on your bladder and your kidneys because of what it does. So although we do it in a very safe manner, we don't know how long that is safe for, because I'm still essentially a guinea pig for this medication used in this way. So anytime I get any type of urine infection, that's obviously a concern, whether it is ketamine doing that. I do go through phases of having them quite a lot because of EDS. You are a lot more prone to them, and I've had quite a few through this year, and each time they do get worse, and I do get more and more blood coming out, which is obviously a concern, whether it is damaging my kidneys and stuff. So now they're a bit wary of how much they're going to do it, or if they're going to do it at all. I know he wanted to have a gap anyway, but we don't have an option B. I know there is another drug that he has been talking about, but he hasn't gone into depth too much about it, and again, if it has any impact on the bladder, he just won't do it. That is my surgery and my health update. My hearing has remained pretty much stable to where it is, which is kind of rubbishy. I still have hearing aids in both ears. Still not a major help, but it is what it is, and I use little bits of sign language here and there with people that know it. So that's that. The POTS is very up and down, very dependent on what I'm eating, my stress levels, working. I went back to work and I could feel it in the last hour or so where it kicked back in, but in comparison to where we have been in the past, it's a lot more stable. So in that sense, can't complain. So that's that. We probably need to look into that, but that obviously my eating's been all over the place. That we don't know. I just keep on the salt. I find salt really helps stabilise that. So if you're having problems with your blood pressure when it comes to POTS, I really find salt helps. And I try not to have it a lot, but Lucozade also helps if you're having a really bad time, or if you also have gastroparesis and you find it hard to keep hydrated, which is one of my biggest problems. Obviously hydration levels has a big impact on POTS and blood pressure, so if you can't stay hydrated, maybe have a Lucozade here and there, not too many because of sugar levels, but if you're dehydrated, that will help just to bring it back up a little bit. And salt. I add salt on everything, and I'm normally carrying some form of salty snack with me just in case. And yeah, I think that just about covers everything. Surgery went really well. Grateful that I had it, and like I said, just hopefully all up from here. If you have any questions about surgery or about a gastric pacemaker, I'm thinking of doing a Q&A specifically toward that, so toward the pacemaker, towards surgery for pacemaker, recovery, things like that. I'm doing a Q&A, or I plan to do a Q&A specifically on that. So if you have any questions, either pop a message or a comment over to me on my Instagram, or leave them in the comments below so that I can puzzle all the questions together and answer them, because a lot of people have been actually asking me about surgery or about gastroparesis itself. So I'll do like a gastroparesis pacemaker surgery Q&A thing, specifically based more around that. And if you like this video, like I said, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't, because guess who's coming back? I know I keep saying it, but now I'm hopefully getting my life a bit more on track in terms of not too much taken on, and health hopefully back to some stability. I'm hoping I'll be able to get back into making videos and doing what I love, because I miss it essentially. So yeah, You want to be subscribed so that you can see what I'm doing. Be sure to hit that little bell button and it will tell you anytime I upload a video, because subscription feed is very weird, let's be honest. All my social media is linked in the description box below, so if you want to see my day-to-day, week-to-week life outside of just videos, then be sure to go over to my Instagram specifically, because I upload on there the most. And there's quite a lot of exciting things coming up, I can tell you that for sure. So you may want to go over and be following me on there. And until next time, keep watching, stay strong and stay safe. Bye guys.